Oh, fire up that engine. It is time to visit with our good friend Ron the Car Guy on CW Iowa Live. It is 12 minutes past 7 o'clock right now. Hello, Ronald.
Well, good morning.
How are you?
I am awesome today.
Did you enjoy the rain this morning?
You know what? That was great to wake up to. Yeah.
That was great.
You were probably already up. It woke me up about 4.
Yeah,
so.
no, we were driving in.
My dog woke me up.
I've got enough coffee in me since then, though. I'm going.
Yeah, there you
That
go.
was great. Yeah,
it was downpour.
Yeah, I drove here with my window down. It was, it's nice outside. Yeah. It won't be this afternoon.
Did you have to wipe off the windshield?
No, it was done raining.
Oh, okay.
All right, but
My hair's a little wet now.
speaking of traveling, that's
Yes.
exactly what the topic of discussion is today, because a lot of people are ready to hit the road.
You know, they're ready to get into the family truckster and go on the vacation. I mean, we're past 4th of July.
Right.
And people are thinking, okay, I got to get the family vacation in, before school starts. And so this is the time of year that we see a lot of people hit the road. And there's some simple things you can do. I mean, being in the towing and roadside assistance business, I mean, we tow cars in every day, people that are traveling that have failed and broke down. So, I mean, we get to see firsthand, what's not happening or what's going wrong on these cars.
And do you see a pattern?
Well, we do see a pattern. And before I talk about the pattern, I can sit here and say, hey, go get your tires checked, go get your oil changed, and you guys aren't going to listen to me. So what I want to talk about is why your car breaks down when you go on a trip versus when you're just using it around town to go to the grocery store, go to work, and stuff like that.
Okay.
And it's important to understand that first.
Because there is a difference.
Yeah, and there is a difference, and it's what we're asking the car to do. And the best analogy I can put up with is most people could probably go out and run a mile. I mean, I might be able to go out and run a mile.
When chased, sometimes.
Well, yeah, depends what's behind me. But those same people can't go out and run a 15 miles.
Right.
And it's because they're not conditioned to it. They're not used to it. That's not what's going on within their body and their makeup. I mean, you could train to do that, but you're not used to that.
Right.
Your car is the same way. I live in Grimes. I got in my car this morning. I drove to the station. So I drove 15 minutes, shut it off. My car's outside rusting right now. Mm-hmm. It's gone. It's quote unquote mile. When you go on a trip, let's say you're going to the Black Hills or Colorado or Chicago or whatever. Now you got in that car and you're asking it to run 15 miles. You're asking it to go a distance. So it's going to get up to speed. It's going to drive down the road at 60, 70, whatever the speed limit is, for a length of time. And so all those fluids are going to get up to temperature and they're going to continue to stay warm. All those moving parts are going to keep moving and building up heat.
So you're asking your vehicle to run a marathon.
Exactly. And it's not conditioned to it. It's not used to it. Not that it can't do that, but if you had a weak water pump, a weak alternator, a weak hose or something, or fluid that's deteriorated and isn't doing its job to lubricate and protect parts, it might work okay around town on little short trips.
Because you're only going for 15 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. But now we're out on the road, we're asking it to perform at its optimum, and it can't. And that's why we see cars break down. So
okay.
The best advice I can give people is, talk to your trusted mechanic and tell them what you're going to do. If you bring your car into me today and say, hey, Ron, I'm here for an oil change and a tire rotation, we're going to change your oil, we're going to rotate your tires, and we're going to go through a 28-point inspection and look things over on your car. Now, if you bring it in and say, hey, Ron, I'm due for my oil change and tire rotation, and next week we're going to drive out to Denver, Colorado, or we're going to drive to somewhere in California, I'm going to look at your car differently.
You're going to give it a better once-over.
Exactly, because I know you're going to be going through some mountains, so we're probably going to do a little more in-depth brake inspection on it. So communicate with your service provider and tell them what you're doing, where you're going, what your plans are, because it'll make a difference. There's additional things that we're going to look into a little bit more in depth.
Probably look at the cooling system too.
Exactly. If you're going to drive through, the desert or hot weather,
right.
Even though it feels like that in Iowa now. But it makes a big difference as to how in depth you're going to look at a car and test some stuff. Some of the common things that we see failure, the biggest one is flat tires.
I was going to say tires.
Yeah.
And why is that the case?
Well,
especially on trips like this, because you see them all the time.
All the time.
A back full of luggage, a whole pickup full of luggage.
If we don't get 8 flat tire calls at least today, then we weren't in business. I mean, you actually see that many. Part of it is you're loading the car down, you're putting more weight on it. The tires are getting up to temperature.
They're getting hot.
They're getting hot, and they're staying hot for a long time. When it gets hot, the air expands. It pushes out on the tire a little more. It's not used to that, so if it's weak or got a crack or a bad spot in it, it's going to fail. Exactly, exactly. And then low tires are another big cause.
Why would that be the case?
So let's say you pick up a nail or you got a tire that's a little bit low on air. That tire builds up more heat if it's not properly inflated. The rubber kind of sits a little bit lower to the ground, it squats a little more, and it builds up more heat, and it will fail. So you want to make sure you have good tires too. Make sure there's good tread on it. Make sure they're properly inflated. And then the other thing, a lot of cars, minivans, SUVs, small SUVs, the tire mounts up underneath the vehicle, the spare tire. We want to check and make sure that, the spare tire is inflated in case we need it.
Right.
But that device that holds it underneath, that rusts from the salt that we use on the roads in the wintertime. And we go out on calls oftentimes where that mechanism is seized up. We can't get the tire down. We end up having to cut it and ruin the device.
Because we never think about it.
Exactly. So when you go in for that oil change, or I like to call it a trip inspection, say, hey, can you make sure that my spare tire goes up and down? Make sure that mechanism is
It's a lot easier to fix in that situation than it is on the side of the road.
I can fix that on the hoist.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you've got a fflat tire, the car's sitting like this out on the road.
It's a little.
All we can do is pray we can get the thing down. Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's jam-packed with luggage.
And then, of course, your battery and alternator need to be tested. They're under extra stress when you're out on the road. We talked about fluids, transmission fluids, coolant. That AAA says that's the #1 cause of a breakdown out on the road is a cooling system failure. And then most importantly, have a plan. Have some kind of roadside assistance or a phone number. Who are you going to call if you have a problem? Because you don't want to be making that decision at 10:30 at night or 9 o'clock in the morning, because then you're at the mercy of whoever you can get a hold of.
Right.
Right. So what number would you put in your phone if you were a guy who was traveling?
If I was traveling, I would put AAA's number in the phone, or I would put Westside Auto Pro's number, as we see on the screen.
Now you're following when I'm driving out.
Yep. If you're in Kentucky and you need roadside assistance, call me and I'll help you find someone.
I was going to say, you're always great, Ron. No matter where anybody is across the country, you can help them out. And thanks for giving us some great advice.